Tag TV and Tag Radio. Be seen and heard by both technology users and technology producers throughout the state of Georgia and around the world. Low cost, big benefits, powerhouse online branded video and audio has arrived. Tag TV, Tag Radio, there's a lot more to know. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by Globalspeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of Globalspeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. You hear the term more and more. Some of us use it to describe who we are, entrepreneur. Tom Noonan and Chris Klaus? Oh, yes, they're entrepreneurs, all right. Truett Cathy, he's one. Ted Turner, of course. Sarah Blakely, now the world's youngest female billionaire, used her life savings of $5,000 to start a small business and patent a product that is today a billion-dollar company. Did you know that some 40 years ago, a 17-year-old kid borrowed $1,000 to open a sandwich shop? His name was Fred. Oh, yeah, Fred DeLuca. Today he owns more than 37,000 Subways, generating over $9 billion a year. Oh, yes, Fred's an entrepreneur. But did you know that Winslow Sargeant is an entrepreneur? You may be surprised what he's up to now. Greetings, everyone. It's Friday, December 7, 2012, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. What is Winslow Sargeant up to? Well, for one thing, today's Tech Talk focus. You see, Dr. Sargeant is now the 6th Chief Counsel for Advocacy of the U.S. Small Business Administration's Office of Advocacy, appointed by President Obama in August of 2010. The office is an independent voice for small business within the federal government with a mission of encouraging policies that support small business startup, growth, and development. As Chief Counsel, he directs the operations that include conducting research on U.S. small business sector, advocating for small business within the federal government's agencies and rulemaking processes, reaching out to regional and state small business advocates and policymakers, and fostering public awareness of small business contributions and concerns. Dr. Sargeant sees the entrepreneurial spirit as uniquely American and as a path to wealth and job creation, a thread that runs through his life story. Most recently, he served as managing director of Venture Investors in Madison, Wisconsin. The firm provided seed and early-stage money to high-potential healthcare and IT companies. There he specialized in computer software, hardware, and materials, and worked with technology transfer offices. The Chief Counsel brings to his advocacy role years of experience as a federal partner to small firms. From 2001 to 2005, he was program manager in electronics for the National Science Foundation's Small Business Innovation Research Program, CYBER, while also serving as adjunct professor at the University of Pennsylvania. The NSF is one of the federal government's largest research and development budgets that are required in the CYBER program to dedicate a portion of their awards to small firms. And Dr. Sargeant knows the challenges of starting and building a small firm. He enrolled in a PhD program at the University of Wisconsin in 1988 and left in 1992 to work for IBM in Rochester, Minnesota. He received his PhD in electronic engineering in 1995 and worked at AT&T Bell Labs in Pennsylvania. In 1997, Dr. Sargeant and partners co-founded Ananetcom, a fabless semiconductor integrated circuit design company. The company designed state-of-the-art computer circuits for telecom and broadband application. In March 2000, Ananetcom was acquired by PMC Sierra, a publicly traded company. Are you an entrepreneur? Aspiring to be an entrepreneur? Have a passion to build a small business? Well, now you have something else, an advocate in Washington. Find out more and how you can take your passion for entrepreneurship to the promise of its greatest potential as the Tech Talk meets Chief Counsel for Advocacy, U.S. Small Business Administration, Dr. Winslow Sargeant, as he exits his standing room only presentation to TAG members in Atlanta earlier this week. Mr. Chief Counsel, welcome to Tech Talk.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Ironically, just this last Saturday, the inaugural induction of the Entrepreneurship Hall of Fame, recognizing a lot of our own local entrepreneurs, people who, in many cases, know the brands but don't know the individuals. Sarah Bakley, who is Spanx, obviously now the youngest billionaire in the country, youngest female billionaire. Truett Cathy of Chick-fil-A fame, Ted Turner. I mean, the list goes on and on. But in so many cases, people know of the brands but don't realize that many of these companies started out as small business. I'm thinking quickly Fred DeLuca of Subway Subway Sandwiches, who has 37,000 restaurants across the world, who started with one shop. I guess my point being is, how does your experience as an entrepreneur, especially now in the role of Chief Counsel for Advocacy, impact that role?
Well, being an entrepreneur, just bringing that experience of being the underdog, having a vision, knowing that you want to do good in terms of to launch an enterprise, to do the unprecedented, helps me in terms of when I deal with Congress or work with the administration, I can share with them what is the entrepreneur thinking and what are some of the challenges they face, but also what are some of the opportunities. So it truly is a win-win, so that it's a partnership. And so being Chief Counsel, it gives me the opportunity to amplify and what startups are saying, what the entrepreneur is saying. When I was in private industry, I didn't really think that government cared what I had to say.
Really?
But being in my position, we are the voice of small business within the executive branch, and so we take it very seriously. And so it is an honor for us to share what are some of the solutions with regard to what's facing small business.
What a great opportunity, the right person at the right time. When we think about the recent economic situations that we've been facing, a lot of the change and new opportunities that will be coming over the next few years, but without question, a lot of people are saying it really is an economy of entrepreneurs, that in reality, in the future, it'll be about as creating work as it is about creating jobs, or having a job, rather, and finding work for yourself. So to know that you have an advocate that gets it, someone that has been in the private sector, now in a position to really be an advocate for small business, it seems to be just an absolute, to use a cliche, perfect storm. Maybe go into some details about how the SBA Office of Advocacy actually helps small businesses.
Well, that's a good question because, as you know, the Office of Advocacy was created in 1976, and it came out of the need that Congress recognized that as rules were being passed at the federal level, small businesses didn't really have a voice within the process. Large businesses had lobbyists, they had the network to make sure that their voice was heard. But when it came to small businesses, there wasn't a dedicated voice within the executive branch level. So this office was created, an independent office, and so we have two goals. One is a research mandate, which means that we provide the stats on what makes up a small business, what is the contribution, patents, technology. Whenever you hear 2/3 of all net new jobs were created by small business, those stats come out of my office.
I see.
So we have a research aspect to research what's going on with small business. Another goal is a regulatory agenda. So when bills are passed and they have to be implemented, that's via the regulatory process. We want to make sure that small businesses are at the table and they have a voice to make sure that the rules are fair and they make sense as well. And so those are the goals, and that's how we help small businesses.
Well, I think the bottom line, obviously, is that most people, and I think your point's well taken in terms of reinforcing the numbers and the impact of small business, because in so many cases they're sort of the unsung heroes. And when they do reach the level of say a Warren Buffett, or what I mentioned earlier about a Ted Turner, where they've got literally brand recognition, they're thought of as giant companies, forgetting the fact that at one point there was one single location, or an idea like Mrs. Fields Cookies, who now sells $60 or $100 million a year worth of cookies on a global basis. So obviously, the planting of those seeds, the advocacy and the collaboration and the, I would say, embracing of the things that are needed to be done in order to help those individuals not only get excited about getting involved in small business, but to have the opportunity of being enabled, if you will, to find out the kind of information they need to know and have a place that they can go to get the kind of information and support that they need. One of the things that obviously our audience is interested in is the technology community. You can't talk startup here in Atlanta and technology without bringing up Tom Noonan and Chris Klaus. Those are the people who started internet security systems a few years back, basically college kids, really a little bit more than that ended up selling it to IBM for $800 million. Two guys working out of a dorm room turn out to create a software that not only makes them highly successful, but it literally impacts the world. What are some of the challenges from your perspective that are faced by a startup technology firm?
Well, with regard to the technology and also with regard to entrepreneurship, we're a nation built by entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs seek to do the unprecedented. So when I hear stories of those who are just willing to launch out and start, that's what we are. That's who we are as well. And so, but many times when you start a company, the number one challenge many times is access to capital. How do you get the capital that you need? What is, in terms of the runway, typically what we talk about, that you need to have enough runway so that you can execute as well. And so the number one challenge right now is access to capital. So we continue to look for ways, especially at the early stage level. You can always get capital when you're in growth mode, but when you're starting out, sometimes it's very, very hard as well. Also, just to identify, the go-to-market strategy, who are the first adopters, who are the customers, who are the people that want your approach, and also tapping into the network so that you can get, say, not only the capital, but it's smart money, because there's a difference between money and also smart money as well, because you want to make sure that along with that money that you're going to come with advisors and help with lead generation and help with marketing and help with talent as well. And so those are some of the concerns that I hear coming from startups.
Well, I have to admit that I've got to remind our listening audience that we're actually listening to a public official and not a private sector executive, because the things that you're saying are the kind of things that are talked about at lunch, I think, most every day at some Starbucks where someone's trying to talk an idea into its actual implementation. So to hear those things coming from someone who's in a position that you're in, it is, I think, a glorious revelation. I think many of us already know about your record and the things that you've been doing, but now it's a case where I think many more are beginning to get much more excited. And again, as I mentioned, the situation couldn't be more perfect in terms of what you could say is the challenges we face, but surely also the opportunities are equal, if not more so, over the next year, 4 years, 10 years. Let's talk a little bit about the Advocacy Innovation Initiative. I think a lot of people really don't know much about that, and this is an opportunity to kind of get the word out.
Yes. Well, one of the things that we recognize is that not all small businesses are the same. There are some that are lifestyle businesses, but also some that will be high growth businesses. So what we seek to do is to identify those who are high growth, and also to identify what are some of the unique challenges they face in terms of whether it's capital, whether it's workforce, whether it's market. We also know that regulation tends to lag innovation. So as businesses seek to do new things and they seek to put new products and new services into the marketplace, many times the rules may not have been written yet. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that regulations or that rules are forward-looking and not be an impediment to some of these new ideas and new growth firms as well. So that's part of the innovation initiative, is to really make sure that those high-growth companies get the opportunity to be part of the solution, have a place at the table, so that I can present thoughts and ideas to the White House and to Congress on ways that we can help those who are on the cutting edge, because the entrepreneur seeks to do the unprecedented, seeks to do something that's never been done before, and when you're out there, sometimes the rules aren't very clear as well, and so that's where we want to make sure that the rules are written such that it's not an impediment, but actually is a catalyst for economic growth.
First thing that comes to mind is the cliche about pioneers getting arrows in their back. And what you're saying now is that we've actually, instead of arrows, we've got an advocate that's looking ahead. I hate to use these cliches, but so many people from the private sector, I think we've been embedded with the idea that innovation in government is kind of an oxymoron. So the idea of taking a leadership position and actually drawing some of the private sector to the table to talk about not only what is, but what could be, wow, blows you away. Well, as usual, I know, and in fact, I know your time is running out. Our time, unfortunately, is running short as well, but I know how busy your schedule's got to be. But one last question, and I'm going to put you on the spot, but what advice would you offer entrepreneurs engaged in the startup process specifically?
Well, I would say make sure that you are in touch with your mentors. Tap into a network. It's very, very important to run with those who are doing great things as well. And so there are those within each community who are seeking to do and build the next great company. Link arms with those. Learn from those who have made the mistakes. And also I would welcome the opportunity to hear from them on ways that we can come up with solutions that work as well. And so that's what I would share.
Well, Mr. Chief Counsel, thank you so much for taking the time to visit us here in Atlanta. We're actually speaking with the Chief Counsel after a presentation that was made earlier today here in Atlanta, but thank you for taking the time to specifically stop by and visit with some of our entrepreneurs and startup companies in the city. But also thank you so much for taking time out of a very hectic visiting schedule here in Atlanta to speak with us today on Tech Talk.
Well, I just want to thank you.